one after the other. So my name is Andrea Zengin. I'm at Oracle, a business development director for the autonomous database. But today I'm here as the leader of the Oracle Women's Leadership Network in Berlin and Potsdam, and happy to welcome you on the panel Women in Technology. So the topic that we are looking at is diversity in AI. How can we prevent our biases from creeping into AI? I would like to say from the beginning that when we say diversity, as Oracle Women's Leadership, we are looking specifically at gender diversity, to make it clear, because diversity is very broad. Today with me on the panel, let me introduce to you on my left-hand side first Anne Schwind. Anne is Annegret Warnecke is sorry. I don't know so many people named Annegret, and now I'm mixing them. So Annegret Warnecke is pre-sales at Oracle. Then we have Maren Heltsche. Maren Heltsche is a developer and data scientist and co-founder of the open source platform speakerinnen.org. And I'm on my left-hand side, let me introduce you Alexis Noguer. But to introduce him, actually, he has prepared a little film that I would like to show you.
Is a fascinating field. Like computer science, robotics is going to influence the world a lot in the future. So this is an amazing program for young people, but not enough girls are picking science and technology. And we decided to do something about it. We created an ecosystem that attracted girls from all over the world who came together and learned to use this robotics technology to program robots, to program 3D printers, and especially to meet like-minded peers from other countries.
The thing I liked about this camp was the fact that it was all girls, so it gave me a lot of confidence in my future as an engineer. I also liked the fact that there were two teams. There was 3D printing and Arduino. I was a bit on both teams, and a highlight for me during the camp was putting everything together at the end and seeing the final result.
For me, I think the main highlight of this camp was meeting a panel of successful women with successful careers in STEM. In particular, I enjoyed receiving advice from them, and we asked about how they dealt with sexism in their respective industries, and they gave us very, very valuable advice on how to face such problems.
I think it's never happened to me before, and that within a group you immediately connect so fast with so many people at the same time.
I have the chance to use a flight simulator in the German aerospace lab.
And I have to say, I've never been surrounded by so many girls who were so passionate about computer science, so I was really thrilled about that, and it was a great experience to be part of.
So that's Alexis, CEO and founder of the Robotics Institute. Thank you all for being here with me today. So let's start. AI is based on decision models that we transfer from our heads to machines. So Maren, let me give the first question to you. Can offline and online models be neutral, or are assumptions and opinions already embedded in them?
To answer that question, I think we have to understand a little bit what AI is actually doing. So you already mentioned it, it's models. So, and there are models currently mostly built by machine learning processes. So we have assumptions, we have data, and we have statistical processes that somehow spits out results that then are assessed by humans again. So this is pretty simply described. But what you can see, no, it isn't possible to have something neutral because people are always involved, and already the assumptions are kind of biased. So the question is, what input data do we have? Are they already biased? So the result from AI processes or machine learning will be biased. Another thing is the engineers that are building the code, they are like working how they are modeling how they are understanding things. And if I look at people who write code, mostly men, white, between 25 and 45, probably they are biased. Do you think you are biased here in the room? Like, sure, yeah. That's already something. So if people who write code or who are designing these processes are aware of that they may have biases, this is already something. Yeah, and then another question is which algorithms are used and can we see how they work? Mostly we can't because they are built, and that's another point, who has the interest in building those artificial intelligence things? Mostly it's companies, and they aren't interested in making a transparent or making their algorithm transparent. And if they aren't transparent, we can't assess if they are kind of neutral. Now, I don't want to get into that point, but we'll get to that later. What is neutral? What is fair? It's more like a philosophical question. Yeah, and that's very, very difficult.
Thank you, Maren. So, Anne, I mean, Maren already touched a little bit on it, but do you think that assumptions are tested and questioned enough? Oh, Ronika. Hello. So Ronika was the person missing before. I'm so glad that you're here now. Perhaps do you want to introduce yourself before we continue?
Sure, thank you. Guten Tag. I'm Ronika Lewis. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I have an Oracle partner company called RLI Consulting. We implement Oracle's cloud applications, especially those new ones that include AI, machine learning, blockchain, across Oracle's SaaS, PaaS, and infrastructure as a service offerings.
Great, thank you. So we already started. We're just in the middle of the first question. And so I'm going back to you, Anne. Maren already mentioned that assumptions go into the artificial intelligence models. Now, specifically in terms of biases, do you think that they are tested and questioned enough nowadays?
Yeah, hello. Perhaps I can add something to your introduction that you made. In my private life, I'm member of an association that is called Vereinigung für Frauen im Management, and I was head of this organization for about 5 years. So this perhaps regarding my background in this area. And regarding your question, if you think about chess, or I heard yesterday about Go, that is an Asian game or so. In chess, computers have won against competitors or so years ago. In Go, that was done not that far ago. And if you ask yourself, how is that possible? It is only possible if computers can use lots and lots of information. And the information they get is the information that is available from the past, normally. And regarding biases also, if you think about the role women are playing in business context or so, it still is so that, that men are more visible. For that reason, if you use data that is available now and use artificial intelligence on this data, the outcome will, of course, be an outcome based on this data. No matter if anybody is there who will, in a first step, categorize the information or so. You will not be able, right now, from my perspective, to prevent the solution from being, let me say, in a certain direction. And the direction will always be the direction that is given by the data, the machine learning algorithms and so on are based upon. For that reason, that is, from my point of view, a very, very urgent situation we face right now. It is not only about men and women. It is far beyond of that. It is about young people, it is about old people, it is about people who have certain illnesses or whatever you can think about. And it is now the challenge, from my point of view, to find solutions to prevent this artificial intelligent applications to get proposals or come to proposals that go into the wrong direction. And yeah, I think that's it.
You just had a very good point, which is go in the wrong direction. Yeah. And Ronika, perhaps a question to you. How can we decide which assumptions or with which models are healthy and which ones are poisonous? Who can decide that?
I think we have to consider a couple of different things. So artificial intelligence can be a very good thing in society, but it has to remain human-centered. So when we think about, you know, which assumption should be good, are those things good for the betterment of society? Yes, that should be our foundational basis. Then the next thing is, what problems are we trying to solve? I am out of Atlanta, but I'm also in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And in Cambridge, one of the communities that I do a lot of work with is called MIT Solve. It's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and we focus on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Of those goals, there are things, pillars that we focus on, like economic prosperity, health, access to healthcare, sustainability, climate change, and so on. So these things are very important. How are we solving problems? How are we focusing on things that help people in society? The question that you asked before, I'd like to kind of segue that question into this one. When we think about the biases that are inherent sometimes in technology, for instance, darker skinned people like myself and even darker have a problem when we fuse AI with trying to do just analysis, not even, you know, recognition, but there are parts of analysis that go to attributes such as just detecting their face, yes? And so when we think about how that comes into play, you know, there's a criminalization and even maybe possibly a weaponization that can be aimed and targeted towards certain people of color. So one of the things that we have to think about underlying when we're coding is, how is this human-centered? How is this helping people versus this is just coding for the sake of coding, right? Is it helping? Are we bettering society? Are we helping all people, whether they're people of color, whether they're women, whether they're people with disabilities, any of those things, right? We have to come back down to just the baseline of, do these things focus on helping people? Amazon's recognition was in the news recently, right? For, you know, they're selling this to the military, and they denied and deflected and said, this, oh, no, this is good. There are no biases in it whatsoever, even though there were many reports that stated that biases were inherent in the technology, right? So ethics councils and boards help us to kind of create a foundational basis where we go back to Andrea's last question of, how do we make assumptions, right? Well, you know, take Germany, for example. You guys have a great foundation here with your philosophers and your thinkers, and I believe you guys even have your own kind of commission künstliche intelligence, yes? Where you guys are focusing on not just bringing technologists, but you're bringing people who really think about morals and ethics. And that's what we really need, right? So we need people with various backgrounds, not just technologists, not just people of color, not just men. We need women of color, we need men of color, we need men who are technologists, we need women who are philosophers, we need all various types of people helping us to focus on the basis of, you know, is this morally good for society? And I think once we have those, then some of those assumptions help us to generate the betterment in the code that we're writing when we're including those types of people to answer those questions. Is it fair, right? Is it ethically moral? Is it just? Is it inclusive? Is it diverse? Some of those things we have to consider.
Thank you very much. I would like to come to one point that you said, which is the ethical boards. And you were mentioning Germany as an example. What do you think, perhaps Maren, about ethical boards and Germany, perhaps?
I think, yeah, probably in Germany or Europe, we make up our mind more about data protection and things like that. About ethics, I'm not so sure. So I'm not sure if it's already there where it should be, because where is artificial intelligence developed? It's not in civil society, because civil society doesn't have any money to do it. And if I look at the plan our politicians have for artificial intelligence, it's more or less based on supporting European or German companies to cope with Chinese or American companies, but it's not like giving huge amounts of money to thinkers and people to implement artificial intelligence where it needed to be. That's my opinion, but probably I don't know as much as I should. But I think probably from outside it's looking brighter than it is. Yeah, it's a start. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah. And also the awareness that it is a topic. This is great. This is already great because, yeah, we have to think, we have to start thinking about it.
Annegret, do you want to say something to it? You?
Yes. From my point of view, not all ethic boards do a good job, just to say it this way. We had ethic boards in the past in Germany regarding entrepreneurship or so. They could have done a bit better from my point of view. So I think it is essential and it is necessary that we do not only have boards, but that we do have a broad wave of people thinking about this topic and forcing the politicians to do something that will protect us all. Without that, I doubt that we will have solutions that will help us.
Thank you very much. Alexis, I think you wanted to add something?
Yes, it was about resources. I read a book 2 years ago. It is the last book that Helmut Schmidt, former German chancellor, wrote. And what he did is he made a last trip to China, visiting 2 or 3 persons that were friends and that had impacted him a lot. One of them was the Prime Minister of Singapore. Another one was a top-ranking former Communist Party politician in China. And they have a conversation, and you can listen to that on an audiobook. And one thing that stuck with me, and I just remembered it now in the conversation, he was asked by, I think, Lee Kuan Yew, who was for 25 years Singapore president. He was asked, how come that all the Internet 2.0 success companies are in California and none of them are in Europe, in Germany in particular? So that's a train that Europe missed, Germany too. And Helmut Schmidt explained, and that for me was an eye-opener, he said that in Germany, 20% of the economic power of the country is created by the automotive industry and the surrounding supplying system. And if you want to be leader in a technological field, society needs to invest massive amounts of money into education, especially higher education. And that's a 10 to 20 year project. And Helmut Schmidt, a chancellor, so he must have said things that he must have known a little bit better. He explained that that was impossible in Germany because the automotive lobby is so powerful that when massive amounts, billions of euros are for debate in investing into artificial intelligence university, for example, they manage to get that investment into combustion engines. So this might change a little bit now, but that's a very important fact to be aware of and to, let's say, pressure the governments. And second point, so I wasn't thinking that I had something to say on this technical debate, but about ethics, I am a little bit optimistic about that area. I think it's something to be very aware of. It's a precious thing to have, but it reminds me of the 70s, 80s, when I was in school in the 80s, that we read a lot of literature, in particular one book for those from the German culture is by Friedrich Dürrenmatt, I think, Die Physiker. He's a Swiss guy. It was a debate raging in the 80s whether the technicians, the engineers that had created the atomic bombs, were ethical at all, whether they could be left with the decision, to launch a nuclear attacks. And I'm saying that was very pervasive in my childhood. So I think that in Germany and in Europe in general, because of Europe's history, I think there's ethics and acting in a responsible, moral way has always been, I think, relatively high in the debate. And for that reason, I am optimistic that artificial intelligence will be kept in check by thinking about the relevance of ethics a lot. And it's a debate where I think philosophers and writers, for example, have a very big role to play. And I say this being a computer scientist and engineer myself. So I think they add a lot of value to the debate and to having a balance.
Thank you very much. Ronika, do you want to add something?
I will. Thank you. Yeah, Maren brought up a great point about regulatory boards, right? I agree. I don't think that they're there yet, right? I think the idea of them being there, because to that point, we have not, figured out everything with AI, right? We are all still learning. So in order for a council or a board to come together and put regulations in place, I think it's premature, but I think having the boards constructed and built with people who are thinking about these things is a step in the right direction. I'm a bit disappointed by Google. You know, Google ran Google Plus for what? How long? Over a decade, right? And we know Google Plus had died years ago. How many in here, show of hands, Google Plus account, right? Okay, actively on Google Plus, show of hands. Exactly. They let that go for over a decade. They brought up an AI Ethics Council board for 1 week, got pushed back and shut it down. I think the AI Ethics Board was much more important, if we could agree, than Google+. Google+ was just copying off of Facebook, right? Wanting to have their own social network. So I think, you know, we can learn, like I said, something from, you know, Germany and from other countries that have ethics boards and are already thinking about this. I mean, we have some voluntary, like, you know, the SAFE pledge, where we're thinking about data privacy and protection in the US, and you can kind of sign up for it voluntarily. But do we really have a lot of people who are really just, you know, on boards and councils focused on, you know, artificial intelligence and the concept of AI ethics? I think we have a long ways to go. So that's why I like the idea that we have those at least, right? We have to start from somewhere. They will get mature. Maybe we'll take some people off who didn't do well, and, you know, kind of in a democratic way. But I think we have to have them.
What I also find crucial is to add diversity to the teams who are working on all that stuff. Because someone already mentioned it, so if, or I mentioned it too, so if in a team that is already building AI, people are looking at it with different perspectives, probably things will change faster before there are all these boards and probably legislation, if at all, and then coming back to the companies or to the developers. So I think we also can do it like grassroots and bringing our minds to that blind spot, because this is already something I think that is crucial, probably like UX some years ago. Nobody had that role in a team to think about, and so people don't think about, because everyone thinks another person is doing that job, but nobody is doing that job. So this could be something we can do right now. So overthinking our values, our morality, I don't know, you know what I mean. Yeah, and doing it in our everyday work as well.
Absolutely. So, do you, yeah, one more question, and then I'll open it to the audience. Because I think it's a very good point you mentioned, Maren, beside the ethical boards, the diversity of the teams. And what can we do to get more diverse teams looking at AI? Alexis, this is a question to you.
My experience, of course, is limited, but I have also some years behind me. I have two answers to that. If you really want to get gender balance and, or in general terms, improve diversity, there's the long-term path. There's only one path. It's education. You have to qualify yourself, your daughters, women in particular, to be able to succeed in a digital world and to, in an early age, to pick STEM careers. Why? Because more and more professions and also society and politics in general are commanded by tech knowledge and tech jobs. So you need to be able to operate in a tech position in a solid way to have power. So the more women that can be promoted into that direction, the better. The other opinion I personally have is that I think you need to force companies to give more jobs to women. In my experience, I am a manager myself. I think it is very, very difficult, even for very ambitious and motivated and mentored women, to get to the top of a ladder for different reasons. In my opinion, you need to create rules and force boards to, for example, to select 1/3 of a proportion to have women in there. And the argument that is often given against those approaches. Well, then you promote, mediocrity. I think that's totally wrong. I am convinced that in any big multinational corporation, if the whole board picks, flies together in an airplane, the airplane crashes, you have 20 other guys or women who are able to do that job as capably as before. It's just that when you're at the top of the pyramid, boardrooms, they are very, very good at shutting out dissent and that, creating a network. And I'm convinced you need to force the change. Forcing is a little bit hard word, but create legislation, and companies have to put more women into positions of power. That's what I think.
Great, thank you. I see a lot of nodding hairs around me. Does anyone want to comment?
I agree, but I think that it has to be a top-down approach. What I mean by that is Amazon has just hired the second woman of color to their board now. It's the former Pepsi co-CEO, Andrea Zengin. So they also hired onto the board the Starbucks COO as well. And so it has to be a top-down approach, because in your organization, in corporations, boards are choosing and making the decisions for the companies, yes. So, you can be the small, like David, in the organization, trying to slay Goliath, but the board is ultimately making the larger decisions for the corporation. I also think, as we're moving into the future, this is a global kind of issue, and we are in global economies now. We're no more siloed. I think the conversations we're having here in Germany, the conversations, will be possibly a little bit different in another country, right? For say, AI ethics in the UK, in Europe may be different than it will be in America, right? So we have to have these conversations in each country within the context of those countries, and we also have to empower startups. So being an entrepreneur, having had a business for the last 13 years, I think there are going to be more people in the entrepreneurial space, and we have to be inclusive and supportive of entrepreneurs from all different types of backgrounds. So we have to be supportive of more women entrepreneurs. We have to be supportive of more women of color entrepreneurs. We have to be more supportive of, in order to have the inclusiveness and the transparency and maybe even the thought leadership. There's a gentleman in the US in Miami, Brian Bracken. He created Kairos. It's a facial recognition software. Brian, is doing exceptionally well in this company, and the company has done well. They've taken on venture capitalists, partners, and then they push him out, right? So, you can't, this guy took this company from zero to the first line of code to being what it is now as a facial recognition kind of preeminent company because of the issue with Google and not being able to recognize people of color, but now we're pushing them out. So is that being inclusive? So not only in organizations do we need to have people in boards who are helping to be more inclusive, who are from very diverse and different backgrounds, but we also need to support the entrepreneurial efforts of people in startups who are coming into this space as well.
Thank you. Let me open to the questions of the audience. Does anyone have a question?
Okay, this topic is really important because we are on the receiving end. For example, we don't know how our social timelines are being constructed. What are we exposed to? How many decisions were taken by AI algorithms during the day? For example, what appears in my ads, in my mailbox, etc., etc., etc. So this is important not only in the private, at the government level, the private companies, but also it's important. This comment goes towards us as engineers, because probably here we're all engineers, software developers. How do we also take or influence this topic? Yes, as you have said, this comes from the government, ethical boards, this comes from the companies that are paying and founding this kind of technologies. But, eventually, for example, Amazon had in 2014 a system that was helping into the hiring process, and they scrap it because it was biased. And so, for example, that people that try to apply for Amazon during those years were in some way affected. So that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Do you know about any effort that us as software engineers can take ownership and help influence the decisions not belonging to the companies or being part of the government? Because I think that's a lot of people.
Thank you. Ronika, you want to take this question?
You guys are in a very special time right now. Have you heard of the term crowdjacking? So there's an author of a book called New Power. His name is Jeremy Hymans. I would suggest you all take a look at least of the reviews on the book online. But New Power talks about this concept of new power versus old power. And as my friend Alexis here stated, in terms of the big automotive companies, they could kind of be representative of old power in this instance, whereas new power is movements. Take like the Black Lives Matter movement, or even the Google movement, right, where they rejected the board. I mean, these are software engineers within Google themselves who are the ones who rejected the very board that their company erected. And this is representative of new power. So new power is just a bunch of people coming together and saying, no, this isn't good. You have someone on this board who is, not inclusive. They're xenophobic, they're all of these bad things. And you have someone whose company sells, military, weapons to the government, So this is new power rising up. These were the people within Google who were rising up against it, and they shut it down as a result. So new power is really like all of us coming together to say, we reject that, and just, protesting it via social media, via marches, via, all of the different mechanisms we have to bring awareness to these types of issues. So I think, with social media the way that it is right now, with Twitter, just with, like, again, this concept of new power is changing things for the better. So I think use your power. You're part of the new power movement.
Thank you. I'm sure, Maren, as a developer and data scientist yourself, you have to say something?
Yes, probably I would just add, so if you are aware of these problems and also that gap between the algorithms that influence your life, but you don't know what they are actually doing, you have the ability to question it or to bring the question up. So there are so many people outside that are no developers and they're not technically trained, and they aren't aware that there are any things like algorithms, like shaping their lives and their information. So I think this is also a great opportunity to try to understand with your knowledge and also to teach other people, and then probably bring them all together and form something that is bigger and that forces to show how algorithms work, to change algorithms as well. So it's possible. It's also possible to own your data. So there are some movements that so it's that say that's important to share data, because it's also knowledge I gather from me personally, but I don't want to have like two companies owning all my data. So I want to own my data. And this is also something I think we can do to go in the right direction. But yeah, and also raising awareness in the surroundings you are, in your company, for instance. Ask questions, like peeking everywhere.
Okay. Just behind you, there is a question.
I have not a question, but I think we need something like crowd train for for AI, because now in most of the time informatics train the algorithm, and I think we need diverse peoples from all years, from all professions, and now the training process is too complex and too difficult for all people in the society, but we need a greater source for this to detect knowledge and train algorithm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Karin, let me hand over to you.
Okay, just one aspect to add to what Maren said before. We don't only have the power to influence the algorithms and the way we write code, but also to influence the data sets that are created, to modify them, to have all the different dimensions of diversity reflected in the data sets, to use an inclusive language when creating data sets, because this is very important. Not only the algorithms, also the data give the results that is used to do everything we understand under artificial intelligence.
Yeah, thank you a lot for this comment. Time is going on. Let me take a last question for you before we conclude.
Thank you. I'm working in the HR business, and Oracle has already a lot of predictive analytics in place, so they offer the service. And one of my job is really to explain a German works council how that works. Why in the company these guys a key performer, the other one, let's say, is a loser. So I have to explain someone who has nothing to do with these analytics, nothing to do with SQL, how that works. Why it's 70%, not 80%. Any idea how I can do that?
Okay, a very concrete question here.
In 2015, I was in London in the Strand with the Oracle customer. We were migrating them from 97 disparate systems across 62 countries, and one of those was Germany. And we had to go to the Germany Works Council and do exactly what you're talking about, so I feel your pain there. We were implementing HCM Cloud as well. And I will tell you that we had to just be very prepared in what we were doing, correct, right? So here is our roadmap. Here's our project plan. Here's exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it was really just for the betterment of talent management and acquisition and that whole pipeline for the organization. So just go really prepared with what you guys are actually implementing, why you're implementing it, and if there are some components of AI, how you're being, exercising corporate social responsibility with it. You want showing them the algorithm? Be transparent. Transparency is what we definitely need with AI.
I'm just wondering, you talked about different cultural or country contexts. So could you come up with some examples of what would be AI ethics or constraints in each country? Like in Germany, what's the primary concern versus Asia or America?
Very interesting question.
I'm not the expert. I will say this. So think about the governments and politics, right? So think about freedom of speech and things like that in countries in Asia and China versus in the United States, right? It's those politics are definitely going to influence some of the ethics and the things that may be considered ethical versus not ethical, right? So some of those examples, I think, are where we kind of lean to say that AI ethics, what may be ethical in China, for example, may not be ethical in the United States. So the same way that we've now have erected chief data officers to ensure privacy of, data in companies for consumers and even for employees, if we're talking about implementing human capital management systems, we have to think about ethics in that very same manner, so.
Thank you very much. So, we've been talking about biased assumptions of how the data from the past goes into the AI of the future. I think we had an interesting conversation about the ethic boards that somehow are needed and might not be there yet, about diverse teams and the effort that we need to do to get more women and diverse teams into the AI development, and about new power and the responsibility of each one of us into this topic. So with that, let's conclude this discussion because we are out of time already. Just want to give you a last hint that if you're based in Berlin on the 26th of September, we're going to have, Oracle is going to have an event specifically to this topic again and more in depth with workshops and more discussion. So if you're interested, you're invited to come there. And yeah, with that, thanks a lot to my speakers. Thanks a lot for being here.